Business in the Community Ireland.
Hello everyone. We will get started in a few seconds, just waiting for everyone to join. So just bear with us. Well, welcome. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this session, Employment of People with Disabilities. As ever, we'll start with some housekeeping. So the session will be recorded today. We will take Q&A at the end, but in the meantime, please use the chat function to log your questions, and we'll also take cues from the virtual floor in a little while too. So we appreciate that. And on the session today, I'm joined by my colleagues, Anna Greenhalgh, Employment Programs Manager, and Yvonne Brown, Employability Coordinator. And Anna and Yvonne each have over 20 years of expertise in inclusive employment, so we're in good hands for the next hour. And now to our agenda. In a moment, I will share with you insights from Elevate, our Inclusive Workplace Pledge. And then Anna will introduce EmployAbility, our employment support service here at Business in the Community. We'll also hear from a participant experience. And then Yvonne will share with us supports for employers and how we can help you achieve your goals in employing people with disabilities and the accommodations and the government supports that are available. We'll have the business perspective and we'll hear from Edel McSorley, Operations Director at Mr. Price Branded Bargains. Edel is a fantastic champion of inclusion, so really looking forward to hearing from Edel in a little bit too. And then, of course, we'll have the Q&A and we'll close with some key takeaways. But firstly, let's take a moment to reflect on the insights from this year's Elevate report. So disability, it is one of the indicators of diversity captured by the Elevate Inclusive Workplace campaign. And in this year's report, we profiled the experience of people with disabilities. For example, we looked at the population as a whole. And we know from the census 2022 that 22% will identify as having a disability or long-term health condition. That's more than 1 in 5 of us. We know also that education levels might be lower than the general population, which means I'll be less likely to be in the labour force in the first instance. And if I am, it will be harder for me to find employment. And without employment, I'll be less financially secure and be more likely to struggle to buy essential goods or services and be at risk of poverty. But also then when we think, of some, other insights, and in the next slide, you can see from this pie chart, it's quite stark, the significant gap, participation gap in the labour force for people with disabilities and without disabilities. So just there on the next slide, as I say, you can see from the pie chart that very obvious participation gap. And as a country, we really need to do better. According to the Disability Federation for Ireland fact sheet for 2024, Ireland ranks the lowest of the EU for disability employment rate. That's a very stark fact, and really there are a wide variety of disabilities, and today it's about understanding how to create partnerships for inclusive employment. So on that note, I'll hand over to my colleague, Anna Greenhalgh, to tell us about the employment programme EmployAbility and our work here at Business in the Community.
Thank you so much, Louise, and hello everybody. This is a great opportunity for us to speak with you, so thank you. So I just wanted to spend some time to introduce EmployAbility to you. I guess we have a lot of experience here in Business in the Community, 25 years of developing, designing and delivering employment programs for people with additional needs. So we have developed an awful lot of experience and expertise. So we were really glad to be awarded contracts just this year from the Department of Social Protection to deliver the employability service in Dublin North and Dublin West. So there are 23 services right across the country. I guess what stands out about this service is that it is very much embedded in the government services. So we're known as an intro partner, and that's really where we get most of our referrals, is through intro staff. And then the other thing, I suppose, is that the people that we meet are coming here on a voluntary basis. Unlike some of the other government services, this is 100% voluntary. So the people have made a decision on their own that this is something that they're ready for, able for, and they're really motivated when they come to us. So I guess our model that we've developed is centered around the individual. It's individualized job coaching, and we supplement that with kind of group training and then business supports as and when is appropriate. So really, it's starting with the job seeker at the heart. What are their needs? What are their goals? What are their strengths? And we provide a reliable support person, that one good adult for up to 1 year. But really, this service is just as much for employers as it is for the employees. It's really sharing that goal of wanting contracts to work out in the long term. And I have to say, I find this area really exciting at the moment. We're in such a good position to support employers. Obviously, there's a lot of CSRD reporting that's coming through. We're there that we can be able to help you provide a solution for that. We also know that employers care about this issue, that they've noticed, or they really recognize that hiring people with disabilities is a benefit to their organization. So from that AHEAD employer survey, it was 83% of employers recognize the benefit. I want to talk a little bit, just if we could move on to the next slide, about the disability label. And I think we're all agreed it's of mixed helpfulness to have this label attached to anybody. I mean, for starters, it really kind of belies the kind of issues that we see walking through the door. So as this image shows, disability conjures images that don't really represent the majority of people that we meet. And also it's binary, which is a problem. So either you're disabled or you're not, which of course isn't really the case. We know that health status and abilities are a spectrum and that they're not static. I think we can all recognize that our mental health fluctuates on a daily basis. So really, as Louisa said, with 22% of us reporting in the census that we have some form of long-term condition, that means that all employers, all people are working with people with difficulties already in workforces, so that they're already making some form of accommodations for people. So this isn't like this huge big step change that we're looking for here. I guess it's just trying to put focus on it and work out what's best practice. So in terms of what we see, there's huge variation in terms of the issues. We see a lot of people with acquired injuries. We had a man recently who had been in a motorbike crash. He had acquired a learning disability as a result, but he had incredible work ethic. And he was so determined to get back, and we were able to secure with him a cleaning position, which is the perfect fit for him at the moment. We also work with a lot of people with mental health difficulties, the likes of anxiety and depression, and then longer term conditions such as bipolar and schizophrenia. And then we have a good number also of neurodivergent people, so people with autism or dyspraxia or dyslexia, and a much fewer number of people with physical disabilities. There are obviously complicating factors. So those intersectional issues such as, socioeconomic background, accommodation, race can all kind of inform how a disability is felt and how many barriers people really experience. And then there are aggravating factors. The COVID pandemic, is still being felt by a lot of people who are vulnerable. The bounce back ability, is maybe less, and their social skills are really, I suppose, taken a knock, and their confidence in their social skills. And on top of that, social media can play a part. So where people don't have a workplace to go to, they can spend more time online, and that can really compound the sense of isolation and anxiety and negativity. So I guess all of these factors mean that there's a real need for a highly person-centered approach and time to build a good relationship. So I just want to show you now in the next slide just the participant journey, so you just have an understanding of what the participant would would come through with employability. So, I mean, it looks like, I suppose, any journey into employment, but there are a few key additions. The agreement. So this is this agreement with the job coach, which really sets out expectations from the start. And what's great about it is it just means that the job coach and the participant have an experience of, a healthy, respectful working relationship. And it means that the coach can then go on and advocate for that person and be a referee to say, this person worked incredibly well with me. So I stand by, this referring him to you. The individual employment plan is also a really important, it's a live document, and it keeps the participant's voice at the heart of all the work. And this just goes through in huge detail what kind of workplace would suit me as an individual, what kind of size of a company, what's the location that would suit, the hours, what speed of work would I like? Do I like busy? Do I like quiet? And all of this really helps to build a self-awareness and a job readiness. And you'll see their business input. So there are great opportunities for businesses to input, in the sort of middle stage where they could do workshops on particular, workplace skills. They could, I suppose, promote their own organization as an employer. They could do mock interviews and provide real honest feedback, which is a rare thing. And they could do site visits, which can be really, really valuable to kind of break down barriers. The transition into employment from welfare to work can be really underestimated in terms of the stress involved. It's very, very paper heavy. There's an awful lot of admin. Some of it can be online, which is obviously daunting. So the job coach is really, really valuable for that transition. And then as people go on into employment, really that support is key. The overwhelm can be huge just when everything is new, and that's where confidence can really take a dip. And also that's really where the employers need support too, because they're just finding their feet or their way in terms of what's going to work with each individual. So we're there standing behind the participant all the way and just to act as advocates. And really, I suppose we'll hear later directly from a participant, really it's about trying not to be fearful as an employer of offending or making mistakes. You just got to do it to find out what works. There's the only way around it. And, in the 25 years of job coaching and business in the community, we really couldn't think of a single example where a participant had left the job or had a real problem in a job because of the way that the person had talked about their disability. That, that's never been the reason. There might be lots of other reasons or things that they didn't like about their employer, but that taking offense has just never been a problem. And in any case, our coaches are really, really encouraging participants to disclose. Otherwise, it's really that, having to talk about their disability is just preying on their mind as this thing that they're carrying around with them. So it's often a huge relief to just be able to talk openly about their condition. Okay, now I'd like to pass you over now to Yvonne Brown. As Louise said, she's a coordinator for Employability North, and she has over 20 years experience of the service.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks. So moving on to the next slide there. So instead of us speaking about how businesses can accommodate people with disabilities into the workplace, as Anna mentioned, we thought it'd be better for you to hear from one of our participants themselves. So I'd like to introduce you to Ezra, who's been working with a job coach since March of this year, and he's recently obtained an information officer role with the Irish National Organisation for the Unemployed. So if we just play this audio clip here now.
Has an employer ever tailored your role to help you succeed?
I was interning with the Ballymun Job Centre. I was helping out with the EU team project management. They're moving this room here and there. But then, I told them in advance, it's like, hey, so-and-so is my issue. I won't be able to help with this and that, but any tech stuff I might be able to help with. I'm quite good at talking to people, so maybe I can be like your greeter or your MC. And they put me to those roles, and I felt accommodated. I didn't feel bad that I wasn't doing anything, and I didn't have to make myself look busy.
How can management communicate in an effective and inclusive way?
It's going to be a bit of a broad term, but I think what's important is, I've mentioned before, open-mindedness. not being afraid to actually talk is very important. I think that is a very, very good practice. And to also focus on actually listening. Like, we all have an opinion to say. And I think the most important is to actually just maybe take a step back after you've listened to someone's point.
What inclusive practices help you to grow in your role?
Just look at us as people. You don't need to mollycoddle us. We probably had that growing up or in the places we've been into. We're people too. That's why we're here. We want the job. That's why we actually worked hard and strive to get here. We want to be treated as just your everyday job. And I think not being scared of someone's disability and actually asking the person how they're dealing with it. Like, I myself always feel bad and a bit kind of like ashamed that I have a back issue. So whenever like we need to move tables and thing, I always feel bad that I have to hide or whatever, because it's awkward to say no.
What helps you to settle in a workplace as a person with a disability?
Oh, this is gonna sound weird. The Irish cup of tea. During breaks and all that, just saying, it's like, it's nice, culture-wise anyways, for like the just having a chat. I think it just helps with the inclusivity, feeling part of an actual bigger organization.
What have you learned from EmployAbility?
They give you courage. Like, they don't mollycoddle you, they don't hold your hand. It helped me not be scared. It helped me not feel dumb. It gave me the courage to be like, oh, well, he's saying that I can actually fit in these roles. I feel more confident about myself now.
So we hope that you've enjoyed listening to Ezra there, and just you have a bit of a greater insight from a participant's point of view as to what people with disabilities are looking for from an employer. So moving on to the next slide, we're going to have it. You can move. Thanks, Lorraine. If we can just have a chat about what we can do to help you, how we can support businesses. Often many businesses find themselves unsure as to where to begin when it comes to hiring people with disabilities. So I'd like to share a process that we successfully implemented with a local county council. This council was eager to increase the number of people with disabilities in their workforce, but they struggled to reach them through the traditional recruitment channels. Their diversity officer, after consulting with various different organisations, decided to partner with EmployAbility. So we provided them with access to a pool of job-ready candidates from a range of disabilities, and that was a key decision-making factor for them in partnering with us, was the range of disabilities and the access to job-ready clients that they could access. After identifying the available roles, it was agreed to offer initial 6-month contracts. And so the employability job coaches gathered the candidate CVs, and then the council's HR reviewed them. Successful candidates were invited to interview, and what made a real difference here was that the employability coordinator was part of the interview panel, and this was hugely beneficial to both the candidates and the interviewers, and it really created a more inclusive and supportive process the whole way through. But our involvement didn't end there. Our candidates were selected and placed in different teams, and once placed in different teams, we continue to support both the participants and their line managers. And this ongoing assistance helped ensure a smooth transition and fostered a long-term successful partnership between the council and its employees. So when we move on to the next slide there, I'd like to discuss 2 success stories that we've had, and just to highlight how small accommodations can really make a big difference to people thriving in the workplace. So the first there is a 25-year-old woman who had poor mental health, and she struggled to find work through the traditional recruitment processes. One employer, however, bypassed their usual approach and offered her a chance. And by providing flexible working hours, which was her only accommodation, they unlocked her potential, leading to a highly successful placement in administration. Another story is about a former long-distance truck driver who retrained in logistics after an accident. With ergonomic seating, reduced working hours, and more flexibility for medical appointments, he secured a position using the wage subsidy scheme which I'll discuss later. These simple adjustments allow them to continue contributing meaningfully to the workplace. So both of these examples show how with a little bit of understanding and flexibility, businesses can create big opportunities for people with disabilities, benefiting both the individual and the organisation. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll have a chat a little bit more about accommodations. So when it comes to supporting people with disabilities in the workplace, small accommodations can make a big difference. These are just some of the accommodations and highlight that not all accommodations require expensive building work or big changes to the work practices. For instance, providing information and training in the person's preferred format ensures that they can access and absorb the material in a way that suits them best. Templates for routine tasks and emails simplify day-to-day operations, helping the person to work more effectively. Offering extra time and giving information in advance allows the person to plan and perform tasks without unnecessary pressure. I'm sure we could all benefit from that as well. Additionally, flexible work schedules accommodates personal needs, enabling employees to balance health and productivity. Creating personalized workspace gives a person the environment that they need to stay more comfortable and focused. And with hybrid working nowadays, that can be something that's really, really valued by people. Finally, providing audio recordings of meetings ensures that people don't miss important details and they can review decisions and discussions at their own pace. So these thoughtful accommodations can really empower employees with disabilities to thrive, and it creates a much more inclusive and productive workplace for everyone. So moving on from the accommodations, we're going to have a quick chat about some of the government grants that are available. Now, the information on this screen we will send out afterwards, but it's just to discuss a newly launched Work and Access programme that has been launched by the government. And this is to improve workplace accessibility for employers and employees. And it includes a workplace adaptation grant of up to 25,000 for workplace modifications, workplace needs assessment grant of 2,500 for specialist assessments, up to 12,500 for in-work support. There's a disability equality and inclusion training grant for 20,000 for staff training. Work equipment grant up to €24,000 for assistive equipment and technology. The personal reader grant is for €12,500 and the communication support grant. So this covers up to 80 hours of communication aid. So that would include the likes of having an interpreter for somebody who's deaf. As I said, we will send out that information after the webinar as well. Okay, then the next grant, which is one I mentioned earlier, is the wage subsidy scheme. And this scheme is quite underutilized, and it's a great opportunity for companies to build a more inclusive workforce while receiving financial support. The scheme offers up to 10,748 annually or $6.30 an hour per employee with a disability. So this is to compensate for any productivity deficit that might be there, any shortfalls because of the disability. It really encourages businesses to embrace equal opportunities without having the additional financial strain. By participating, businesses not only enhance diversity, but also benefit from the unique perspective and talents that people with disabilities bring to the table, fostering a more innovative and inclusive work environment. And I know that will be covered later on in our discussion. I'd like to now hand back over to Anna to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. That was great. And I guess it's my pleasure now to introduce Adele McSorley from Mr. Price, Operations Director. Adele, if you want to join us online here.
Trying to get the camera and it just decides that there we are.
Hi, Adele.
Yeah, good morning,
welcome. I'm delighted to be able to include that little photo there. It's hot off the press. This is one of our EmployAbility service users starting her new role in Artane in Mr. Price. So that's a great way to start this conversation. Adele, just we're so glad to have you for this, because I mean, I know you're in demand for these kind of conversations, because you are, Mr. Price, just so active around inclusive employment, especially around people with disabilities. So I guess my first question is just around how have you done it, like, and how have you fostered that kind of environment and atmosphere and culture?
Okay, so where we got started was a very clear value within the business that we wanted the businesses that are within our community. So they're a very important aspect. And we wanted our business to be able to give back in a very sustainable way. And when we looked at it, you know, there's, I suppose, an easier way of charity donations. And then there's the maybe a little bit more difficult but long-term solution of helping people to get jobs. And people that aren't maybe what I call a straight arrow. So somebody with a privilege or somebody with a university degree, but helping people who are further away from the jobs market to make that big step and to use the skills and the training that we got and the help we got as young, you know, professionals, and we were guided through, and, you know, just to use those skills and to give back. So we started with a work experience program, and it started with transition year, and then National Learning Network explained to us that they have these amazing individuals with really good courses, but the block for them is that employers won't give a chance. So they wanted work experience programs to help, you know, the individuals just to make that step for further on in their career. And we realized that just by giving the work experience alone was a boost in confidence. It was an acceptance, and it was a chance for the individual to shine. And then what came out of that was that our employees got so invested in the individuals because relationships got built, and they were no longer just somebody on work experience. They were one of their colleagues, and they were advocating for them and saying, okay, work experience is coming to an end, but we need to keep this individual because they helped the team in X, Y, and a Z. And even on one occasion, I got told that they're such a good football player that they can't let them go because they play in their local club, and the team or the store are very much involved in that team. So it's lovely to see that when relationships are built. So I think relationships are the key to how the culture started to develop.
Brilliant. That sounds fabulous. And I guess, you know, it's not all roses. I'm sure there are occasions where these contracts don't work out. Can you just talk us through examples of that and how you've handled it?
Yeah, the examples are that when the match isn't correct. So maybe when the individual, the participant that's brought forward for us just maybe isn't the right match for the administration role or for the retail role, or aren't just ready yet. And there can be some cases where, particularly in our retail environment, where the disability just mightn't be suitable for that fast-paced environment. So you know, if the individual is more likely to risk themselves, you know, hurt themselves, we have to take a look at that. But it really doesn't work if we just give up. You know, we have to always say we have to try something else and try something else. But when we come to, you know, an end of a road and we say, okay, you know, we're going to actually affect the confidence of the individual, this just isn't the right environment. So can we talk to our partners and look at alternative arrangements? And we had that with a young guy, and I really was heartbroken because I love the bones of him and I really wanted him to work out, but really he was going to injure himself. And then I found out a few months later he was doing really, really well, and he was working in a garden centre and had found a passion for plants and flowers, and it was the right fit for him. So the right fit, I think, is something that we always need to be talking about and exploring.
And just for some people listening, it might sound like, you know, there's definitely extra work involved and extra time where you're trying different avenues and trying different things. What would you say to employers that are like, we don't have the time?
Yeah, there's not so much time. It's really including the individual and asking them what they're comfortable with, asking them what do they like, and just building, you know, as time goes on. And what works for us is a buddying system where one of our experienced sales assistants or experienced administrators will take that individual under their wing. And then as time goes on, the confidence grows, but the confidence grows on both sides, not just from the individual with a disability. The buddy or the mentor is really growing as well, and they're growing in their role. So there's realistically, you're talking about doing this over a long period of time. So it's not like it's 5 hours a day. It could be 4 minutes a day.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Can you talk to us as well about how these people with disabilities have found you? So you mentioned National Learning Network. So
Yeah.
that's obviously an important partner for you. Are there other partners? I mean, I guess we're one too, with business
Yeah,
and
business
community.
and community.
What's the role of them for
Of
you?
course, it's an absolutely crucial role. It's the crucial role, and I mentioned earlier the matching of the individual, and the training of myself and my team, and helping us through, to guide us through step by step, and to be able to lift the phone and to say, okay, I have somebody here who maybe doesn't have the social cues that other employees have. We don't want to give up on them. So what do you recommend? And in an example of that, we had a young lady, and she's still with us. She's about 3 or 4 years with us now. And when a customer would ask her for help, she'd walk away. So the customers were complaining, they thought she was being rude, but actually she just didn't know. So it was an employability partnership, and myself and the employability representative came in, and we did role play, and we revisited that for a number of weeks, and coming in and doing a little bit of role play and showing her how you would react, or what the expectation is. And there hasn't been any problem since. She's really, really flourished. So we don't all naturally have the talent or the gift, but it's not to say that we can't learn it.
That's great. Geez, would you have any more examples of that? Because that's really, really great that the role play worked so well. Are there any other kind of tweaks that you might have made, or?
Yeah, like we have a really, really cracking young man, and he is deaf, and he came in and he started working on the shop floor, and staff started learning sign language, and just trying to communicate with him. But he's just such a fantastic personality. So through an interpreter and through the team, he said he wanted to use the till. So it's an immediately, okay, how will this work? Because he has communication differences as well, and a learning difficulty. So in that case, we were working with Chime, the national charity for people with hearing loss. And we talked to them and we said, okay, we don't want to minimize him. We want to allow him to reach his potential. So let's do that. So they came in and they did additional training with the team. They were able to organize for us a sign language interpreter to give them lessons. And we worked with them, and we asked them, how would you like the customers to know you need a little bit of extra time? And he asked for a badge that he would wear to tell the customer that he was deaf. And then he wanted a whiteboard. And on the whiteboard, that if the customer didn't understand him, they would write to him. And he would be able to then look after them and respond to them. And I think every week we get a compliment about him, but the compliment isn't because he's deaf. The compliment is because he's an absolute gentleman. And he would jump the counter to give good service. And he's an example of what good customer service looks like.
That's great. Thanks for that. And I know we've talked about your employee resource group.
Yes.
Could you want to share a little bit about that, how that works? What's the value of it?
Yeah, so we've done employee resource groups over the years, and we did them in the traditional way, where we would have separate groups. So we would have a disability group, we'd have an LGBT group, and so on and so forth. And they didn't really last. It was, the employees were like, oh, it's another meeting, and we just didn't get great engagement. On reaching out and asking why they felt that, the general consensus was that just say LGBT as an example, where the individuals were more than happy to, they're out and they're proud, but they don't necessarily want to be associated for being LGBT. They want to be associated for being them and what they're good at and their personalities. So we broke up everything that we had, and we created the Margarita Club. And the Margarita Club, while it sounds like a drinking club, I promise you
That's
it's not.
amazing.
I wish it was sometimes. It is. The idea behind it is the Down syndrome video on the serving of the margarita. So our motto is assume that I can and maybe I will. So it's really about not limiting anybody. So this Margarita Club is based on intersectionality. So we have a mix of people all across the business, from senior leadership, sales assistants, office staff, anybody who really is a change maker in the business or wants to be a change maker. So we have meetings 4 times a year. We bring the group together and we bring in guest speakers. We had a meeting last week and we had a section on domestic violence and understanding and looking at our policies and trying to change our policies. And then outside of that, the Margaritas work within our community. So they have been recently doing interview skills with mental health charity or mental health organisation, and doing confidence building. They were also involved with the National Learning Network in building a little training centre. So it's a tiny little mini Mr. Price on their campus, with the team or the students absolutely love. And there's actually one student who wasn't going to come back, and now he came back because the shop is there. So our team went out and we designed it and built it, and then the team went in and they trained the retail instructors and trained the students on what we call the Mr. Price way. So they're actively working. There's also fundraising events going on at the moment, and the Margaritas all lead out on that and influence all their colleagues and make the decisions on what's next. So it's really, I can't believe how successful it's been, but I suppose it's great because the team are leading it, and I'm lucky enough to get an invite.
Oh, great. Lucky you, yeah. Great. Thanks for that. And I suppose we're also interested to know, where you mentioned senior management are part of this Margarita Club. How important is it that you have senior level buy-in for all that you're doing? CEO board buy-in? Okay,
so without the senior buy-in, we can't do any of this. Because there's no scalability. We need our owner to say, this is our values and here is the resources, off you go and do it. And therefore then, because if we have somebody say at middle line and they're, really want to make change, but they can't get it signed off or they can't get the budget, that won't work. But what I'd also say, Anna, is that the senior buy-in is really, really important, but we also need the buy-in at shop floor and administration level. So it's not only top down, it's bottom up as well. And it's that meet in the middle. That's the really, really important thing. And that's where you get your change.
Great. I like that. Okay. Well, we're coming close to the end of our time. Just a last question. I suppose it's a tip that you might give or some advice for an employer or somebody who's trying to make early steps in terms of inclusive employment of people with disabilities. What would you suggest?
The first thing is to make contact with a partner, whether it be yourself or another disability partner, and allow them to introduce you to their participants. Because when you meet the people and the personalities, I think there's this fear of disability and we see one image, we see a stereotype. That's not true at all. And, every single individual is different. So the value that can be brought by you just opening up your mind and opening up your business and just try. Just start with one person and just try and see what it delivers.
Brilliant. Start small.
Yeah,
right.
That's all you need to
start
do.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Adele, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I'm sure that was really interesting for everyone listening. I think it's time now for us to kind of open up the floor a little bit. And if anyone had any questions, Louise, I know you're going to help me check the chat and whatnot.
I think Barbara Ann has her hand up there. If you want to unmute yourself, Barbara Ann.
Hello.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Can indeed.
Yes. Thank you very much, Adele. It sounds like you're really delivering on this agenda. I just had a question around, have you seen any kind of technological interventions that can help people with disabilities in their roles? Or is there any, I suppose maybe I'll start just with other kind of tools or techniques that have helped, and then more specifically technology.
Yeah, okay. So I suppose with blind colleagues, screen readers are the most obvious one there. So to help in terms of emails and processing of information. When it comes down to store level, we're looking at technologies at the moment, but we just haven't moved, I suppose, forward with them, like technology, as in we're in the process of developing them with a partner, where there will be an app to help individuals, say the tasks are recorded and they can play them back, and step-by-step guidance. And then there's other things like earpieces, say for a wheelchair user, that he didn't need to be running around the shop calling his colleagues. So we invested in earpieces, so all the colleagues had the earpieces and they could talk to each other. A lot of the interventions we've used have been so simple, like whiteboards, notebooks, a bell system, I suppose we haven't come across a huge need for technology outside of our colleagues who are visually impaired.
Thank you. And I really liked how you said just asking the colleague themselves what it is they think they would need and that they think they would like making them involved in it. So thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Barbara Ann. Any other questions for any of us?
There's some in the chat, and a comment from Christabel to say, well done, Adele, doing amazing work. And then from Gavin, saying, I've seen previous initiatives in various companies that partner directly with organisations such as DSI and TWALK, organisations we know well here at BITC, to provide possible employment. Gavin's question is, what are the differences or the advantages of working with business in the community? So that was for yourself, Anna, probably.
Oh, that's a good question. And we'd be the first to say there are some phenomenal organizations out there, like the ones you mentioned. So we're not alone in this. I guess for us and for me, what makes us stand out, we have been doing it for 25 years. There's been a huge number of programs over the years. So we've just developed a very rounded experience of working with people with needs. So we've specialized in working with asylum seekers and refugees. We've worked with the traveller community, with disadvantaged women who are returning, with homeless communities, with kind of those in Northeast Inner City. So I guess all of that means that we've got a very comprehensive experience of people with kind of complicated needs. So that would be one. And then the other obvious one would be that we have this fantastic network of member companies, and really there was a great gear change when Elevate came along. Just pre-pandemic, the Elevate pledge kind of came about, so that it was really getting the member companies to step up and put their flagpole in the ground to say, I'm gonna commit here to moving the dial on inclusive employment. So we're really trying to sort of partner with Louise and colleagues in Elevate to make sure that the programs on the ground can be the solution for what they may have committed to through Elevate. So it's that connection with the kind of strategic work that they're doing with business in the community already, that we can provide the on the ground sort of vehicles for impact and action. So I hope that answers. I can say more.
Thanks, Anna. There's just and another from Gavin as well. Just the right fit in the environment. Is there anything that companies can do to assess if their work environment is amenable to people with disabilities, visible and invisible? Maybe Adele, is that something you want to?
So in terms of that environment, the invisible, I think a sensory audit is always a really good idea. And we've done a lot of work on that, and we're just about to produce a sensory map that'll be available online and in store for neurodivergent individuals, so that they have some visibility of areas that just they may want to avoid, or maybe a little bit noisy. In terms of physical disability, it's really the employee themselves. like we have done accessibility reports, which will help us in terms of spatial awareness and lifts and steps, or issues that we may have with that. But everybody is so different that each individual employee needs to help us do that accessibility report, and we will tell them that. We'll tell them that we're all learning, and if they help us and show us where the issues for them is, we'll then address it.
Great, thanks, Adele. And then was a comment from Priscilla to say, always huge learnings from when we hear what Adele and Mr. Price are doing. So that's lovely from Priscilla O'Regan there. And then another from Lorraine to say that this is clearly a great culture within Mr. Price for employing people with disabilities. Can Adele share how this was fostered and why it has been important to their business, and how would you suggest a company gets started?
The culture has been the greatest gift that has come out of this, but it's only possible when you get started. You bring in people, and as I said earlier, the relationships are built, and these relationships are so strong that it's just really, really powerful when you see what each individual does for the next individual. Like, human beings are great. It's just fantastic. Like, we have an example of a autistic colleague who is now getting a book published for him. And his colleagues are right behind him, and they're helping him put everything together, and they've been promoting it with ourselves, saying that he's such an amazing poet that we can't leave all these poems left. So that wouldn't happen unless the individuals were so connected to each other. We had a look recently at one of our busiest stores in terms of numbers, and we found that out of 53 employees, 20 came through disability programs and have been holding down jobs for up to 10 years. But the team actually forgot a lot of the individuals came through disability programs, because that ability has just outshined anything. That was the initial blocker. So really, it's just get started, allow a human being into your business that needs additional supports, train your staff to help with the additional supports, and involve everybody so that the growth is organic.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer wants to know, are there specific recruiters that are working in this space?
Don't know who that's for, but I would say each individual partner. EmployAbility, I would have thought, is one of those recruiters.
Yeah, if you mean recruiters of the participants, I don't know if that person wants to clarify.
Yeah. And well, I suppose maybe is it recruiters in terms of say within the corporate community? I don't know if Jennifer wants to take off her mic, and here we are. Jennifer, do you want to?
Can you hear me?
Wait, we can hear you.
Yeah. On mute, apologies. Yeah, I was just wondering if there was, outside of the partners, is there anyone within the recruitment business itself that are actually, dedicated pipeline for engaging in employing people with these needs?
In terms of like a profit-making organization, there possibly is one. I can't think of the name, to be honest, but like, I suppose I would say that we're best positioned to do that. Like, obviously we're a non-profit, and this is a government-funded service, but I think we're probably in the best position, in that we have this very solid pipeline of people who have been dealing with the Department of Social Protection for their social welfare payments, and I've identified that this is the right time to start getting into work. So they're directly, the EmployAbility is the sort of go-to service at that point. So we'll be meeting. So we're working with like 220 people a year at the moment, and we hope to expand that.
And just to expand as well, EmployAbility is an initiative that runs across the country, isn't it? So is that correct to say?
23 services across the country, exactly. So I guess, for employers, we'd be saying we'd love to kind of help you hone hone what you do, hone your model with us in Dublin with a view to kind of, you know, then expanding out and linking with the other services across the country.
Yeah, so we're part of that network of employability organisations who will support employers to tap into to this talent. And I guess that goes to the next question. We might probably just take one more, but it actually is that piece around that role of organisations, you know, the employability programs to hold the hands of employers, you know, through this as well. And how do you support companies to become disability confident? And Anna, maybe Yvonne, maybe even you want to talk about that.
Will I take that one?
Yeah.
Sure. Yvonne.
So basically, I suppose we do that very much through our team of job coaches that we have. And so they work with the candidates or the participants on a one-to-one basis. So they really know the people inside and out. And likewise, they'll get to know the managers, the team leads, and even some of their teams. And they will support the people throughout. And we really work on the value of like being honest. And as Anna mentioned earlier about disclosure, so we really ask our participants to disclose everything to us so we can fully support them. So when we put them into workplace and we support them into work, that we can also help the managers and line managers with that disclosure and to be that bridge between both and support. And as we said, that support does go on for a year. So it's really valued, and it's that relationship between the job coach and the participant that makes our service, I think, so different as well. And also the diverse selection of people that we have with disabilities that we work with in employability. It's not just one selection or one niche group. It's we deal with people across all sectors, so that really is unique for us as well. So I hope that answers that question.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Yeah, and I think that kind of answers your question, Chedu, there around what it does BITCI offer people managers and teams who welcome joiners from the employability program. So it is to really work closely together, and as you mentioned there, Yvonne. Yeah, and I think also, Adele, you alluded to it earlier as well. You know, sometimes there is maybe a bump in the road for whatever reason, and you know the job coaches are there, you know, to work with the line managers to resolve any challenges and find ways of resolving things. I think that's all the questions we have.
Great, thank you so much, Louise, and thank you again, Adele and Yvonne.
Thank you for
and
having
everyone.
me.
Before we close, I just thought we'd try to sort of do a little summary of some key takeaways. I think there's a slide on that. So, you know, Yvonne, Adele, please do come in if you feel that we could add to this. But for me, there are 5 key takeaways. So the first being, it's coming loud and clear. Don't be so afraid of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. It's about trying. That came across really clear from Adele, I think. Number 2, let your people lead. So again, it's, you know, as Adele illustrated, you know, it's your existing staff, if they're given the encouragement to get involved, that they can really embrace inclusion, be solution focused, and, you know, shine in their existing roles. So it's just really seeing that cultural change doesn't happen top down as much as it does bottom up. And the third, be intentional. So this is around just going for it. You know, whether you've set a numerical target or not, it's just about holding yourselves to account. You know, your diversity data does not need to be perfect to move on this. It doesn't, you know, your staff don't need to be perfectly trained up in disability awareness either. It's just really about taking those initial steps. I mean, I note that the Elevate data shows there's just 5 signatories out of 60 who have set targets around increased representation. So maybe that can be a challenge to everyone today to see, can they, if not set targets, at least set some balls in motion and take some action. Number 4, create a corridor. This is, I sort of give reference to Morris in Tesco for that little phrase, where he's doing something similar. You know, we have lots of experience of helping employers to create those alternative pathways. And it's just really recognizing that, like, you know, this data-driven recruitment process is going to deselect. It's going to select out people that have those more non-traditional pathways to work. It just does. So it's recognizing that and then saying, okay, how can we do it different? And we can support you to find that ways of doing it different. And the key is just about meeting the people at interview. So being not so reliant on the early application stages, but more the interview, and then finding solutions around work placement or part-time hours that can make that corridor successful. And then finally is about partnering up. That's come loud and clear, that it's employers are best to not try and do this alone, that they're way better off if they partner with organizations like ourselves, like the NLN. There's loads of them, other ones out there, but the employability services are really, really best positioned, we think, to be the partner. And really, it's all those small practical tweaks that will help get the best out of each person. They're going to come from the partnership, from that three-way dialogue between the job seeker and the partner and the employer. So that's really it, unless anyone else wants to add another takeaway. Hopefully that covers the main ones. So it just remains to say, hopefully you can think of a next step that you could take this week. And on that note, our email addresses are on the final slide. Or they're not, but they will certainly be provided. And I know, Adele, you kindly said that you're available on LinkedIn for any queries also, so thank you for that. And we're going to be sending out a fact sheet as well as the slides shortly. So thank you very, very much for your time this morning, and hope you have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Business in the Community, Ireland.